All right, first Q&A. First off, I would like to give a big shout out to a couple guys over at Killer Flicks. Killer Flicks is a Facebook page where it's about 2,000 person group. If you want to add yourself there, you can talk to me and you can talk to a few of these guys I'm about to mention. It's a really cool group. For being so big, I'm surprised how cool it remains. I used to be part of a big group. It went south and I left it. I started a very small private group. That group now is like family members to me. I love everyone in there. And when I was added to this group, a guy named Dylan had found me on here and added me to the group and made me feel very welcome and has supported me heavily throughout this. So thank you, Dylan. And also a guy named Lee McCoy, who also is a YouTube reviewer like myself. He goes by Drum Dums on here, DRUMSDUMS. He's a really fun reviewer and seriously one of the nicest guys I've ever met. I genuinely don't understand how someone couldn't like him. So thank you to both of you heavily for that. So yeah, if you want to do that, go ahead and join Killer Flicks. Just send a request. I'm sure that they'll add you and you can find me, Jason Smith, or anyone else in there. It seems to be fairly cool. And the few people that I'm not a huge fan of, I just avoid, and they never are dicky enough to where I'm like, okay, I don't want to be a part of this shit, because I feel like they would be told to stop. I do feel like the group is well maintenance. Anyway, so getting into the questions here, let's start with the Killer Flicks questions because they have been overly supportive. Not that the YouTubers haven't, but I just thought I would start with Dylan and Lee because, man, they have been such a huge help and and their support is greatly appreciated. So starting with Dylan's question, what were some of the most important horror movie watching experiences? Absolutely Halloween, number one. First horror movie I ever saw, got me into it. I saw it and I was just like, why am I not watching more of these? I kind of did a backwards thing where I started watching horror when I was 5. And then when my teenage years came around, I started really getting into like cartoons and kid stuff. Not sure how that worked out, but Halloween shaped it. Halloween 4 was the first horror movie I saw in theaters. And it kind of just solidified that, like, I'm a horror fan. Like, I want to be known as the horror kid, and I always have been. Moving on to Lee's question. What horror celebs have you met, and who's your favorite? Any good stories about the experience would be good, too. I've actually never been to a horror convention. That's going to apply to one of my questions here later, but never been. I live in a small town. It never happened. I don't really have a good reason why. But I did run into Robert Englund once when I was a kid at a movie theater my brother was working at. And he came up to me and he's like, oh my God, Freddy's in the theater. And I was like, oh my God, I don't even remember how old I was, 10 maybe. And I was terrified. And we walked in and we both had no idea what to say. And he was with some like blonde, I don't know if she was an escort or what. She kind of looked like one. But we sat there and we were just like, my brother was older than me by like 8 years. So I think he was like 18 and he was like the manager of the place. And the best thing he could come up with is he asked him for the time. And Robert Englund turned around, looked at his watch, told us the time. We said thank you and we walked out of the theater. That is the lamest story ever, but it's true. And that's really the only horror celeb I've met outside of Adam Green recently at the Victor Crawley screening, but I didn't get to like shake his hand and meet him. He was just happened to be in attendance and I got to see him. But that's really it, man. I'm bad on this one. I suck on this. Another Killer Flicks member, Michael Hughes, another good supporter of mine. What is your all-time favorite year for horror movies? Now, when I was researching this after I saw your question, I mean, the 80s, which is an answer later, but pretty much you can pick any fucking year in the 80s and you've got a slew of them. I mean, look at this shit. I'm not going to go through all of them, but look at this alone. In 1980, you have The Shining, The Fog, Motel Hell, Friday the 13th, The Changeling, Maniac, Inferno, Terror Train. In 1981, you have The Evil Dead and American Werewolf in London, Halloween 2, The Howling, Friday the 13th Part 2, My Bloody Valentine, The Beyond, The Burning, The Prowler, The Funhouse, Happy Birthday to Me, Scanners, Dead and Buried, House by the Cemetery, Bloody Birthday, Omen 3. 1982 has The Thing, which, damn, alone. Whew. Creep Show, Halloween 3, Basket Case, Tenebrae, The New York Ripper, Slumber Party Massacre, Amityville 2, Pieces, Extra. Damn, man, it's tough. I didn't even go past that because it starts getting ridiculous. But honestly, just like looking at this list, 1981, man, there is some incredible stuff in here. Some great Fulci, The Beyond, and House by the Cemetery. Whew! Man, do I love The Beyond. Fuck, I love that movie so much. Happy Birthday to Me is my favorite Killer Kids movie. You've got... Fuck, so many. The Evil Dead, Jesus. Scanners, Dead and Buried. Excellent movie if you haven't seen it. And Omen 3, Jesus. The first 3 Omens. What a fantastic trilogy. Fuck Omen 4, don't even. But I have to go with 1981. Jesus, what an incredible year for horror. Moving on. If I mispronounce people's names in here, which I will, I apologize. Moving on to Lucas Ferreira, I'm guessing. Like Sky Ferreira, something. Hey, Jason. Hey, Lucas. I would love to see my questions answered by you. I'd love to answer them. What are the items a new Friday the 13th movie has to have in order to not suck? Well, I am going to give an answer that is not going to be well received. I know how much people despise origin movies or explaining things or giving movie scripts and whatnot. Like the typical bullshit answer, which and it's fine. I mean, I'd be fine with this, but this is kind of what the remake was, and I didn't care for that movie. I just reviewed it recently, and I still didn't care for it. Is like, put a bunch of hot chicks in there and show their tits and do a lot of great kills. And it's like, okay, that's fine and well. Yes, those things should be an obvious thing. So having those is just like having Jason in the movie. I mean, there's such obvious things. Now, personally, what I would love and what I was hoping to get from the remake was to, at least for a short amount of time, see the relationship between Jason and Pamela. This is a franchise that is based around a mother's love for her child, her revenge for the death of her child, the child supposedly not dying, seeing his mother's death, and his anger at his mother being killed. There is this intense love relationship between them. I just, in my mind, just at least showing like a 10-minute opening of seeing Pamela dropping Jason off at summer camp, you know, as the cook there, and him being this deformed mongoloid child, and he's like, doesn't want to be a part of that place, and, you know, she comes in and pushes him to do this, and the kids pick on him, and eventually, you know, he drowns. You see her fucking lose it and off all the counselors, like a gruesome, bloody beginning. And then you see her get her fucking head cut off by one of the counselors. You see Jason witness this. And then you see Jason like go out into the woods. Like he like survives the drowning and goes out. She finds out about it. He's lost in the woods. He doesn't know what the hell to do. He's, you know, mentally handicapped, so he doesn't know. He's like trying to survive in the woods by himself while Pamela's back at the camp wreaking havoc, killing people. And then, you know, Jason finally finds his way out of the woods. And when he does, he sees Pam's head, freaks out. You know, the cops pull up right as that happens. Jason runs off scared into the woods. And then you kind of see like a Golem-esque scene where Smeagol kind of transforms into Gollum. Like we see him slowly, like like a montage fairly, but morph into this. You see his first kill out in there, and then you see him morph into Jason, and he comes back. The summer camp has been reopened, and he is just no fucking way, and lays waste to these people. That's personally what I would love to see. You can still have the kills. You can still have this. You don't have to make it a super sympathetic thing where it's like, oh, I got to feel bad for Jason. It's not like that. You could make them fucking psychopaths. You could make the mom a total bitch. Like, it doesn't matter. But to see that love connection between them, for me personally, I think would be fantastic. So that's my personal opinion. I know most people would disagree with that, but and yes, I did write that script. Not fully, but that whole opening. All right, moving on. Lucas also asks, what ideas for a horror movie would you like to see explored? Man, it really comes down to like everything's been done for the most part. I think that the one subgenre though that we just don't get enough of, and I'd love to see explored more, is werewolves. I mean, how many great werewolf movies are there, and how many werewolf movies period are there? Like, it's crazy how few there are, and I get it because it's a niche market and the effects are not only expensive, but they make or break your film, and everyone's going to compare them to an American Werewolf in London. So I think that everyone's just kind of terrified of it, to be honest, but it is such an unexplored subgenre. I would love to see a resurgence, if there was ever one. I guess you kind of had one after with like The Howling and whatnot, and Wolfen, and you had like a little bit of a surge in the 80s, but for the most part, that needs to be explored more, man. Big time. What special time of year would you want to see a themed horror movie? I want more Christmas horror movies. There's plenty of them. Go ahead and Google it. I've seen so many. I've done the 31 Days of December challenge a few times, and I've watched a new Christmas fucking horror movie every damn time. It's incredible how many there are out there. That being said, the one holiday, if you want to consider this a holiday, the one holiday I've always been shocked, and I've actually I've written a treatment myself for this because I just think it would be a really fun horror film, is Black Friday. I mean, look at all these nutcases, especially like 10 years ago, going to these places and running in like maniacs, and they'll do anything to get these for cuts, price cuts and whatever. And you got like them slashing prices and slashing bodies. Like you could lock them in there and pit them against each other for a better sale on this and that. Kill this person and you'll get this TV for half off. I mean, you could have so much fun with this. So I'm shocked because it's basically already a horror movie. If you watch the videos of Black Friday, it means people being horrible to each other. People who go to that shit are nuts. So absolutely, Black Friday needs its own. We don't have enough Thanksgiving ones, but as I showed you, Blood Rage is amazing. And there's a few others, but Black Friday's never been done. Cody Leach, who also does another YouTube video review series on here, asks me, here's one for you. You can choose only one. Get to watch the finished cut of Halloween 2008 right now, or have the Jeepers Creepers 3 be the movie it should have been. What do you choose? Easily Jeepers Creepers 3. We waited 14 years for that, and it was dreadful in my opinion. I've seen people who enjoyed it. Good for them, honestly. But my God, I thought it was horrible. So Halloween will be what it is. I can wait as long as a movie is good. I waited 14 years for Jeepers Creepers and it was terrible. So I can wait another year for Halloween. If it's good or whatever, it doesn't matter. That doesn't change whether or not it's good. Now, if he's asking me, would I rather Halloween 2018 be great or Jeepers Creepers 3? Halloween, no doubt. To have another fantastic Michael Myers movie, fucking forget about it. But see 2018, no matter its quality versus... Once a movie's out there, that's how it is forever. All these movies behind me exist like this forever. So waiting a little longer for something to be quality is always fine by me. But if you can make it quality and get it out even quicker, shit, why not? I consume enough film that ain't ever going to run out or anything. All right, so moving on to YouTube questions. I'm not even going to try with this name. It's not really a name. So LXIXLXIXLXIX. I don't know. Top 3 films of all time. I'm honestly, you may not like these answers, some of these answers I give, because you'll think they're the cop-outs, but truly, I'm not a list guy all that much. I'm not really someone who's like, I like this one more than this one. I will give my answers here to the best of my abilities, but yeah. My favorite horror film of all time is Halloween. I've said that a million times. And the greatest films of all time, in my opinion, and that kind of is going towards a question later, but is the Lord of the Rings trilogy, which I do count that as one film, especially the extended editions. If you haven't seen the extended editions of Lord of the Rings, get the fuck on it. It's amazing, and it's even better. But because it was shot all at one time as one project, I do consider it. They're not sequels. It is one cohesive piece that was shot all at once. So I do consider the Lord of the Rings extended edition trilogy as one film. And if you do that, there's no film that can even touch it in the slightest. I don't think any film can touch any of those movies, but like together, fucking forget it. It's like Monopoly on awesomeness. It's ridiculous how fantastic those films are. Bottom 3 films of all time. As I said, I'm not huge on lists, and I'm not huge on hating on films, like bottom stuff. That's so tough for me. Like, when people are like, what's the worst movies you've ever seen? It's like, what gauge are we going off of here? Like, movies that are just dreadful, like Manos, The Hands of Fate, stuff that they play in like Mystery Science Theater 3000, like garbage that was made by incompetent filmmakers that never made anything before? Are you talking like big budget stuff like Catwoman with Halle Berry or something, where you're like, this had a budget, this had well-known, actors, this had, a studio, and it had everything that it needed, and they put out something like that, or like the Fog remake or something, where you're just like, how the fuck is it this bad? Like, I understand a movie not working and being not well received and not great. That happens, and then it has its fans. But there's movies that you watch and you're just like, how did this get made? For like no one on the set from this big budget. Like, you have well-seasoned veteran directors of photographers and script supervisors and all these people, producers, and not one of them was like, this movie looks and the dailies are terrible. Like, what the fuck are we doing here? And I think that's why I love what, happening with Star Wars so much right now, is that like Kathleen Kennedy and them are coming in and constantly being like, this isn't what we wanted. We want to release a good product, and everything I've gotten so far, Force Awakens and Rogue One, I've loved. And so whatever changes they made, I don't know if I would have liked those films better, but it's nice to know. It sucks because it's tampering, it's meddling, but the finished product I love so much. That's a tough road for me, but as I said, like worst films, that's a fucking impossible list for me. All right, number 3. He asked a lot of questions. He only asked 5. Some other people ask 8. Going for broke on me. That's all right. Number 3, are you going to review Phantasm, my 3rd favorite film? What are 1 and 2? Since we're at that. Eventually I'll do the whole series, 1 through 5. I will tell you up front that I love 1 through 3. 4 and 5, I'm not really a big fan of. 5 will be a chore to get through again. It was a chore the first time. It was huge disappointment. And it will be interesting to review them, because I personally don't think the series makes any sense as a narrative, like as a story. I'm always just kind of like, what is going on? Really? Like, it's well done and it's well directed and it's cool and it's got great characters and great villain and all that. awesome. And it's got great music, and it's got so many great things going on that I can't help but like it. So if I just completely ignore the storyline, now I'm sure there are people who have watched it a million times and they're just like, oh my God, what are you talking about? Like, I know, like, and they know every intricate detail and little connections and here and there, and they might have a great option. I don't know. But every time I've ever watched it, when like 2 starts or 3, I'm always like, how does this apply to 1? And this doesn't happen here. And so it's hard. Anyway. Considering Christmas time is here, are you going to review the Silent Night, Deadly Night series? Oh, it's something I've been considering. I can tell you that the reason that I'm hesitant is because 2 and 3 are just awful. Outside, 2 has its moments, don't get me wrong. You know, Ricky's whole fucking garbage day line and all that, they're fun. Don't get me wrong, his eyebrows are out of control. And I do have a laugh, no doubt about it. But the 45 minutes of footage from the previous film, and you know, so I have to kind of always fast forward through that, and it's fine, but Jesus, it does become a chore. And 3 I just think is downright awful, which sucks because Bill Moseley is in it. I do really enjoy 4. 5 is fun. The first one is kind of a classic at this point, and the remake is at least pretty brutal, so it's a fun watch. It has some hot naked chicks, so you know, those aren't terrible. But as I said, oh God, I don't want to sit through 3 again. That's my biggest gripe with reviewing those. So we'll see. Number 5, most obscure title that you've ever watched. This is a very tough question because I think with the introduction of the internet, we don't have hidden gems anymore. That's not a thing anymore. Like, every fucking film you look up, there is like a little cult following and a group for it and whatever, and they're not there. Like, the best part about being an 80s child and 90s child is going to the video store and fucking literally just renting a movie based on its cover art, its title, its gimmick, whatever. That was the shit. And you'd take it home and you'd consume it, and every video store would have different titles and random shit, and you'd see like The Cars That Ate Paris, and you'd see these random crazy titles, and you'd be like, I gotta see this. And you'd watch it, and a lot of the times it was shit. Sometimes it was fun as fuck. And then you'd be like, oh my God, am I the only person on earth that has seen like The Brain from 1988? Blood Rage was kind of my hidden gem for a while, or like Patrick Still Lives, the uncut version. Those are still like The Brain and Patrick Still Lives are still films that like almost no one knows about, and I adore them. But Blood Rage finally got a proper Arrow release. The Blu-ray, I just reviewed it recently. Beautiful. I'm glad it happened. But now it's like, you know, every slasher fan knows about it. So there really isn't any crazy obscure films. Like, you know, I haven't found the movie from, you know, I didn't have like a scenario like The Hills Run Red or Cigarette Burns, like in John Carpenter, where they're like trying to track down the infamous one copy of a movie. I have nothing like that. But yeah, it's a shame that the gem thing is kind of just gone. All right, moving on. Paul Shunk. My question is, what is it? My question is, do you like? Yeah, that doesn't work. Sorry, typo. Do you like the Godzilla series? And if so, what is your favorite Godzilla movie? If not, what is your favorite monster movie in general? I mean, I've seen a bunch of Godzilla movies growing up. I made it a point to watch a bunch of them, like the Toho ones, like you said. They're all fun, but they're basically the exact same film, so I'm not going to say I'm a fan. I really enjoyed the Gareth Edwards Godzilla. I know a lot of people hated on it, but I thought it was really good, although I might be biased because Elizabeth Olsen's in it, although she's not in it a ton. I really enjoyed that movie. I don't know the big deal. So yeah, I now as far as like monster movies go, I already said like I like werewolves. Anything with like tentacle monsters, H.P. Lovecraft type stuff, like In the Mouth of Madness or something like that. Like, oh man, anytime something like that is in a movie, sign me up. I love that kind of shit. The Mist, whatnot. So, oh yeah, absolutely. Right, moving on. Netheril Seth, sorry, I don't know how to pronounce shit like this. Congrats again from here. Thanks, man. Got 3 questions for you. Number 1, best foreign horror film. Suspiria, or like The Beyond, Fulci or Argento. Even going back to like Bava with like Twitch of the Death Nerve or Blood and Black Lace, but I'll go with Suspiria. It's just such a well-crafted movie, and it's so unique, and it's, there's nothing like it ever, in my opinion. It stands alone on its own, and it is like the definitive Italian film that like you can always show people. But The Beyond by Lucio Fulci, my God, I love that movie as well. And then, like, if you're talking like foreign language film, because I know a lot of those are like been dubbed in English and whatnot. Pick anything from Korea. Jesus Christ, those guys make they make the best movies. Seriously, if you haven't watched Korean movies, do yourself a favor. They're the most consistent country for film. Number 2, most disturbing movie you've ever seen. Oh man, as a father, Megan is Missing fucked me up so hard. I was watching it, and my kids were like, no, my God, I was fucked up. Like, seeing that girl in the drum barrel when he opens it, and then watching that girl getting buried alive at the end. Spoilers. Holy shit, man. I was fucked up for like, and I don't get scared. I don't get anything, like, but for some reason that hit me fucking wrong. And I was just like, I need to protect my kids from the internet and from anybody. And if anyone ever looks at them wrong, I'm going to fucking kill them. Oh, man. And scariest horror movie I've ever seen, same thing. Just Megan is Missing. I was terrified after that for like a couple hours. I was sitting in my room, and I was just like having a panic attack thinking about my kids getting taken and someone doing horrible things to them. Oh, my God. Fuck me. I don't care about me. You want to come and torture me and kill me? Please don't. But not my kids. Holy shit. There's no fucking worse fate than having your kids go missing or something. Ugh. Gross. AM Gaming asks, do you play any video games? And if so, do you have a PS4 or an Xbox? I do play tons of video games, and I have pretty much every system. My friend and I made it a habit of trying to collect every system that was pretty much ever made, like the Angry Video Game Nerd. We definitely don't have a collection like him by any means, but between him and I, we kind of had a divorce when we split up houses, but he still has, all of the Sega Master Systems and the Dreamcast and all that stuff. But I still have the Retron 5 has been a big help. That has a ton of consoles in it as well. And then I have all the new consoles, all the next gen stuff. I do not have the Nintendo Switch though, but that's only because it doesn't have any fucking games on it yet. The only thing I want to play is Mario Odyssey. All right, moving on to One Man Riot. Hey, One Man, you kick fucking ass, man. I really enjoyed talking with you on here. Congrats on the reaching 1,000 subs so quickly. Thank you. Earned through producing great content and daily uploads, which I love watching. I think I read that last part just to stroke my ego. Number 1, which horror film from the past or recent would you like to see a sequel to, or even had potential to become a franchise? Number 1, The Burning needed a sequel. Come on. No Burning sequel? Get the fuck out of here. Where's my Cropsy sequel? I love that fan poster art with like Ernest Borgnine or whatever. It always gets me like excited and depressed at the same time that never happened. Someone needs to make, like, we're getting sequels to shit like 30, 40 years later sometimes. There's been all sorts of sequels that have been popping up where you're like, holy shit, Town That Dreaded Sundown and Blood Feast and tons of fucking films that I've seen. There was another one recently, like Don't Go in the Basement or something. I was just like, that's like fucking 40. So The Burning, someone get on it. As far as like a franchise would have went, outside of something like that, I really wish the Halloween 3 thing would have took off and we would have got multiple, anthology stories set on Halloween. That would have been kick fucking ass. So I would have loved to see that happen. Number 2, which horror film from the past do you think could benefit from a modern day remake? Oh man, a fucking proper Fog remake would be nice. I'd love to kind of see, even though I think this movie's perfect how it is, it would be cool to see Horror Express, the Christopher Lee, Peter Cushing, Terry Sal's movie. I love that movie, but it would be kind of cool to see it done now. So yeah, if you haven't seen that, cool fucking movie. Number 3, which unadapted horror novel books do you think would make great horror films? Even though Desperation did get a adaptation, it was dreadful. But I would love to see a Desperation, Regulators, double film, same actors playing those characters in the alternate universe. Like, man, pretty much anything unadapted by Stephen King, I'm down to see. I read pretty much all of his novels. Revival would be great. There's so many that are great. I'm so glad we're getting the Mr. Mercedes thing right now. What horror film do you wish you had written? Oh man, 7. If you consider that a horror movie, I do. It's so great. Or something like Cube. I just think, or Saw. Because they're so well written. It's like, God, man, I wish I would have, I wish I'd have came up with that. How cool is this shit? So yeah. Which horror films had you anticipated in the past and were letdowns when you watched them? I mean, plenty, obviously, but one of my biggest was H2O. I know a lot of people love that movie, but I'm just like, I don't like it. I never have. I probably never will. No, I won't. I was angry in the theater out loud. I just thought it was fucking stupid. And on my rewatch, I still didn't think a whole lot about it. Same thing with Jason Goes to Hell. I had grown up with 1 through 8. I watched them so many times. And when I went to see Jason Goes to Hell, it was like, this is going to be so cool. A new addition to this fucking franchise. And I hated it. And I still don't like it at all. Which directors, writers that have never made a horror film, would you like to make one? Matthew Vaughn. I think that he has such an incredible style to him. And he has such an inventive way that he shoots his action sequences that I think that he would bring something creative and original to the table, because I think that is where you can elevate horror, is with creative shots and smart ways to frame things and new techniques not seen before. And Matthew Vaughn really pushes the limits of his films. Like, you watch the fight scenes in Kingsman. They're chaotic like Paul Greengrass, but they're like, very focused and, centrically focused and steady at the same time as chaos is going on. It's an incredible, incredible technique. And bringing something like that, like, George Miller did with Mad Max Fury Road, something like that would translate very well over. I would also like to see Edgar Wright do a real horror film outside of like a comedy, just because I think he writes hilarious dialogue and would come up with something fun, but also more, I don't know, I guess Shaun of the Dead counts. So, let's just scratch that. But it would be cool if he would return. What are your ambitions for your horror film review channel and also a screenplay writer? Obviously, I'd just love to be a known face in the horror community. I would love to be referenced here and there, or, I just want, ever since I've been a kid, horror has been my thing, and to be a part of it in some capacity is a goal for anyone who's crazy into this shit. Like, I just want people to know me as the horror guy. And like, do I want to become famous where like everyone knows me, like a Brad Pitt or something? Fuck no. That sounds awful. But to like be walking by and have a horror fan be like, oh shit, like your Sinister Cinema. Like, that would be so cool because it's just such like a bond, because they're into what you're into. They don't just know you because you're famous. They know you because they know that you connect with them, that you have that thing, that shared thing. Because there's very few people who are into this, that are truly into this genre. And we don't get to meet them very often, and it's a shame. As far as my screenplay writing, I mean, of course, I want to get them made. I have this one script, The Bridge to Nowhere. I've written a bunch of scripts, but there's something about that one. I've always wanted to get it made. And if I could ever work with anybody, it would be Elijah Wood. I just think he's the coolest fucking dude in horror right now. I'm obviously a Lord of the Rings fan, but he truly is a horror geek. And working with him would be absolutely amazing. And number 8, just throwing this out there. You don't have to answer if you don't want. I told you, if you asked me, I'm going to answer. What got you into hairdressing? Do you cut mainly women's hair, men's hair? Are you a stylist, colorist, or barber? I got into hairdressing because I was an alcoholic loser who wasn't doing anything with my life. My father invited me to come move with him to Arizona to be a hairdresser. I made a decision to try to fix my life, drop the booze, get in shape, get all healthy. And, even though hairdressing really wasn't my thing, I knew it was going to get me out of where I was at. And now I've been doing it for 14 years. It makes a great living. I've met some incredible people, and it's the best decision I ever made in my life. Yes, I'm a stylist. I do cuts and color, and I do men and women's hair. I prefer to do men's hair. I just think it is much more technical, and it keeps my brain stimulated the entire time. And I usually prefer talking to men in my chair, but I do really enjoy a lot of my female clients as well, non-sexual reasons. And have I ever done any makeup? Like for horror movies or anything? No, I do not know how to do makeup at all. That is completely separate from cosmetology in that way. Did not study that. Thomas Dodson asks, bro nuts. I'm not sure what that's a name. When the fuck are you going to share some of your script plots with us? Is it a traditional 3-act narrative or what? I'm not really big on sharing my scripts like openly in public with just everybody. If it's a friend and I know them and I have a rapport with them and I trust them, I will definitely send them a script. Or if it's a producer who's interested, I will as well. One thing you can read is I wrote a novel. It was the first thing I ever wrote. I know that it needs more description. It was literally like, so if you ever check it out, it is on Wattpad. It is called Soul Possessions. I will put a link in the description below if you want to read it. I don't think almost anyone's read it outside of a few friends. But yeah, go ahead and check that out if you want. You can see at least a little bit of the style of my writing. And you will see that I have a huge affinity for Just One of the Guys and License to Drive. Some of my favorite movies. Most of the characters are named after characters in those movies, even though it's a horror novel. So yeah, go ahead and check that out if you want. CDR asks, congrats on the 1,000 subs. Thank you. Seriously, guys, thank you. When I say that, I'm not just like mulling over like, oh, congrats. No, seriously, thank you. My question would be, can you rank the Star Wars movies? I'm curious how you feel about the franchise. Clearly, I talk about Star Wars a lot. I wear Star Wars shirts all the time. I will save Star Wars questions to the end. Now, the Wrestling Yoda asks a ton of questions here. Kudos on 1,000 subscribers, boy. Keep it up. I sure will, and thank you. Number 1, if you had to create a crossover horror film with 2 or 3 slasher icons, what would you consider collaborating in the film? I would have just loved to have seen that Freddy versus Jason versus Ash movie actually come to fruition instead of the comic book. That would have just been awesome. So I'm kind of sad that happened. Didn't happen. Since you were big into horror slasher franchises, were you aware that Hostel 3 exists? Yes, I am, and yes, I've seen it, and yes, I thought it was pretty terrible. There was a couple little things I could cherry pick out and be like, these were okay little things, cool, but for, the most part, they were awful. Did you know there was a Creepshow 3, and it's even fucking worse? Have you seen the movie Venom 2005? Yes. Will I review it? No, probably not. Agnes Bruckner, a few other people. Cool movie. I enjoyed it. Yeah, I mean, I can give you my review right now. I liked it. Check it out. You can always find it in like those horror movie packs that I think like Mill Creek might have the rights to it. If not, it's like a company like that. I see them in packs all the time at like Walmart. It's a good watch. If you had to create a Jeepers Creepers 4 movie script and hire a cast, what would you like to see? I mean, obviously, I'd just love to see the revenge of Trish for the death of her brother Derry. I mean, that story needs to be said. They teased it at the end of 3, so make that happen and get rid of Victor, because I'm tired of hearing everyone talk about it. Whether or not I don't want to get into the controversy about that. I'm not going to give my opinion on that one way or the other. I think that's just begging for arguments and whatever. But yes, I would like to see a good Jeepers Creepers 3, which would have to now be 4. Maybe just knock the 4 off and then call it something. Or let's call 4 whatever, and then we'll just call that the trilogy and forget about 3. Or at least I will. But yeah, bring Trish back. Have her go after the Creeper. That's the story that needs to be told, for sure. What are your thoughts on Doug Bradley not playing Pinhead in the new Hellraiser movie? It's fine. I mean, he wasn't Hellraiser. He wasn't Pinhead in Revelations, which was fucking terrible. But that's not because no one can play Pinhead but Doug Bradley. That's because that movie is horrible. And this new movie that's coming out is probably not going to be good either. It has like a $50,000 budget. Not that that can't be well used and make a good movie off of it. I mean, go look at like Absentia by Mike Flanagan. And that's a fantastic movie, and it was made for that or less. So it can be done. I just don't think that a Hellraiser film can be done very well for such a small budget. And the production delays and all that is not exciting either. That's usually trouble. But yeah, I mean, if they made a proper remake, I mean, going back to that question earlier, what movie could benefit from a remake? Hellraiser. Big time. If they did a legit awesome Hellraiser, something like the Evil Dead remake. I know a lot of people don't like that movie. I always say that, but whatever. I don't care. I love that movie. And getting something like that, oh man, Hellraiser done super well today. Fuck yeah. And I don't need Doug Bradley to play Pinhead. If you could have any 2 slasher icons go head to head. I mean, and one of them has to be a superhero and one of them has to be a villain. It's such a ridiculous concept. I wouldn't want to see it, honestly. But since I will answer the question. How about Wolverine versus Freddy? Claw versus Claw. Neither one can really die, so it'd just kind of be a gruesome fucking fight. Obviously, something like Deadpool, which you mentioned here, would be funny, just to keep seeing him get hacked apart and come back. If you see blood in my mouth, shit. I had a tooth removed earlier today, so don't get alarmed. I wasn't like eating bodies or anything. Which horror movies never needed a sequel? None of them really need them. Halloween honestly never needed a sequel. The sequels are not great. I love some of them, don't get me wrong. But the franchise is so fucked up. And I think if Halloween would have just been Halloween by itself, it would even be more loved today than it is. I don't think that sequels tarnish a film like in some grand way, but I do think like Halloween would have been better just left off. Michael's gone. He might be out there, the end. Like that probably should have been it. And if they were going to do part 2 like they did, that should have been it. I do fully enjoy 4 a lot. I have things I like about 6. The rest, putting the remakes aside, not necessary. So Halloween probably would be my answer on that. I noticed how much you like Star Wars so far. What is your favorite episode? As I said, and then he asks, will I ever review something else besides horror, which another person asks here as well. Probably eventually, if this channel got big enough and there was a big enough demand for it, yeah, sure, why not? I would start a completely new channel to connect to, and I would only do horror here, and then I'd do the rest there. Yes, I watch plenty of other stuff. Stephen Kennedy asks, congrats on the 1,000 subs and keep up the great work. Thank you. What is your favorite TV show? Game of Thrones. What is your favorite horror movie? Halloween. Favorite superhero? Batman. And other genres do you like? Everything except for Tyler Perry movies. Which is kind of fucked up because I've never seen a Tyler Perry movie, which most people haven't. And we always use it as that gauge for shit. But it's terrible. Mariah Jen, yeah. What's your favorite film of all time? Well, I said Halloween and Lord of the Rings. Congrats on the 1,000 subs. Thank you. Jason the Horror. Hey, Jason. What is your favorite horror video game? Alan Wake. Awesome game. Absolutely check it out. And what's your favorite Tales from the Crypt episode? I would like to review them all, actually. I'm planning on eventually doing that. I have all 7 seasons right there. The 3 movies. It would be a blast to do them all. God, I can't even right now. Man, I really like the ventriloquist one with Bobcat, and the salesman one where they have that daughter they're trying to marry him to. There's a ton of such great ones. So the handcuff, Carrying Death, I think is what it's called. The guy's handcuffed to the dead body. There's so many fantastic ones, but maybe when I go through them again, I can pick one. Favorite holiday horror movie? Halloween. Sorry, it's a cop-out, but whatever. Favorite horror comedy movie? House 2. Favorite current gen video game? Battlefield 1 on the Xbox One. I play it all the time. I love it. Favorite console of all time? I'll say Xbox 360. They just have the most games on there that I absolutely loved. I've liked every system basically. GameCube wasn't a big one, and the Wii wasn't a big one either. Nintendo's had some mess ups. And what do I think of the state of movies in general, such as movie theaters, Blu-rays? Will everything become digital in your opinion? I do think it's possible that we could see the end of theaters. It will all come down to something like Disney. If they can figure out a way to make as much money as they're making with home release, yeah, I do think you'll see the theaters eventually go away. Like, people are like, oh, that's crazy. You'll never see that happen. You would have said the same thing about Blockbuster and video stores 15 years ago. Netflix came in and eradicated those quick. So if you can make that money, do I think it will happen? God, that's so iffy. I don't think it'll happen for a while, but I do think it could. I do think it probably will eventually happen. I just don't know how long. As far as my opinion on that, I don't know. I'm not a huge theater goer anyway. Like, I do go to the theater because I can't wait, but if I could watch them at home, I would probably watch most films at home if I could, personally. So the theater experience going away, I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of theaters. I'm not a huge fan of people in them. So I don't know. All right, moving on. The movie horror. What is the best era of horror? 80s. Do you plan on showcasing your reviews on other video sites? I honestly don't know any other ones, but I'm open to it. Any conventions you plan on going to? I mean, one day, if this channel became big enough, or if they get any around me, sure. Any luck of you doing interviews with horror personalities? Yeah, I mean, if you get me some, sure. What is the most underrated horror franchise? I hate the word underrated or overrated. I'll get into that into a different review. The Saw franchise. Hate me all you want. I think it's fantastic, and I don't know why people hate it. The most overrated, Scream. I'm not a fan of that series at all. And lastly, oh shit, where's your name? I don't have their name. I gotta go find that. All right, I found it. Amara Red. You didn't say a set amount, so I have 3. Okay, number 1, owning to the success of your YouTube channel, do you think you might, maybe once in a while, keep it fresh and do your own reviews? I already answered this. Yes, eventually. Where was your interest in horror born? 5 years old. Halloween. I already answered that one as well. Sorry. And if you could have any actor act in horror that hasn't done it, who would you like? Jake Gyllenhaal. Big fan of him. I think he could bring a lot to it. Plenty of great actors out there, but I'm a huge Gyllenhaal fan. So yeah. And I'm going to move this last part over here. Yes, I am a fan of Star Wars. As you can see, I am very into all things Star Wars. I have read and am current on the new canon set up by Disney. I own absolutely everything that they have to offer. And yes, I am an enormous fan of it. So yeah, we got the real one. What? Yeah, and some Lord of the Rings stuff back here. Yeah, as I said, I'm not big on order. More blood, Jesus, this is terrible. I'm talking about a horror video. I can't do orders, I'm sorry. The only thing I can say is that even though I'm not a huge fan of the prequels, especially 1 and 2, I do think that the Clone Wars television show really made me have a much bigger appreciation for them and made me end up liking 1 and 2 more. I usually view 1 and 2 as 5-episode arcs of the Clone Wars and try to view them as cartoons. I think they work much better like that. Jar Jar Binks is a cartoon character and works okay as one, but as a live-action character, he's terrible. I've loved Rogue One and Force Awakens. I love the direction that they're going with Disney. I know there's a lot of disagreement about that in the fan community, but whatever. People love to bitch. I'm really enjoying it. So yeah, I'm not going to do a ranking. That's just not my thing, honestly, especially with Star Wars. I don't even honestly know what would be my favorite one. But I do love it. If you ever want to talk Star Wars with me, I am in Collider Jedi Council's Facebook group. So you can find me in there, or if you want to write me in here, or if you want to join Killer Flicks and message me on there, whatever. As I said, I'm very into it. All right, guys. This was fun. I hope I answered enough of your questions. If I missed something, I apologize. I tried to get to all of them. All right, guys.